Hey, this is Casey Glass for Worship Synths, and doing a quick video review of the Strymon Bigsky, which is a reverb pedal mostly for a guitar, but I've been wanting something to use along with my Nord stage for pad reverb so that I can have different reverb between keys and pads and have some more reverb options. The reverbs on the stage are very usable, but they're global, so every patch that's active goes through the same reverb, and so it'd be nice to kind of split that out. So that's what we're going to demo with here today. I've got my Nord stage set up, going out to the Bigsky in stereo, coming into my Mutu 828, and you'll be able to see on the big screen my changes to the Bigsky. So let's just go over that real quick. We've got a couple of things on here. So first of all, the Bigsky has 100 storage locations, and let me center that up. There we go. That looks nice. And it has several reverb types. We have room, hall, plate, spring reverb, and then we get creative as we come around the rest of the clock here. Swell, bloom, those are kind of related. On the back side we have cloud, chorale, shimmer, magneto, nonlinear, and reflections. And I've learned enough about it so far that I can tell you a little bit about them as we go along. I read the manual a little while ago, so I might get some of the details not quite right, but you'll have to bear with me. The pedal is pretty editable. It has MIDI in and out on the back. You can do MIDI through as well, so you can chain your MIDI if you need to. And it is a guitar pedal, so it works pretty simply. You can kind of bank up and down through sets of 3 with the middle and, or the A and B button, and then bank down through the or bank up rather, bank down, down, up with the right 2 buttons. And then your 3 buttons are 3 different reverb memory slots. So you can't actually have 2 slots going at the same time, but you can switch between 3 right there on the front. And so that's convenient if you've got kind of 3 go-tos. That's pretty handy. In the top, the type knob and the value knob are both knobs and buttons. So the type knob, if you click it, it'll switch to showing parameter values. If you click it back, it shows patch name and patch number. The value button will click through the different parameters that are not settable by the front panel. If you have something that you want to set from the front panel, one of these 2 parameter knobs, you can assign these. And so if we hit dwell and we get into there, if we hold down, or if we start turning the, how do we do it again? I think if we hold down this one, I can't remember. There is a way to set it so that you can assign the parameter button. I think you push it and then there you go. Yeah, you push it and then you turn the parameter button you want to assign to that thing, and then you can assign it. So that's how we got that. So now we have this parameter knobs controlling our different types of spring reverb. So there are some extra settings you can get into. Most of the reverbs have more settings than you can access from the front panel, which you get to through the value knob. You can also hook up an expression pedal and control a lot of the reverbs that way, so that's pretty handy. And then we come around, we have the decay knob, pre-delay, mix. Interestingly, 50-50 mix, so half wet, half dry is actually at the 3 o'clock position. That lets you only get, you know, 1/8 of the knob or 1/5 of the knob between 50-50 wet and all the way wet, which for a pad reverb is kind of not awesome. Otherwise it's you know, dry all the way up to 50-50 wet there. On the bottom we have tone. In the middle is no filtering. As we go left, we put a low pass filter on this. It sounds like it's probably like 12 decibels per octave. As we go right, we put a high pass filter on it. So turning it clockwise makes the sound brighter, turning it counterclockwise makes it darker, and that can be pretty handy. Parameter 1 and 2 depend on the particular reverb you're in. And then lastly is the mod setting, and that also depends a little bit on the reverb you're in, but generally speaking, the first half of the throw of the knob randomly changes the length of the reverb tail. So you get a little bit of movement in the reverb tail. The right half of the throw of the knob switches over to actual modulated reverb, what we would usually think about modulated reverb. There's a pitch chorus type effect on the reverb tail that adds some kind of chorusy dynamic interest to it. And so I'll play that and you'll be able to hear kind of the different versions of that. So that's just kind of a quick overview on the controls. One last thing before we dive in, I would mention that Strymon's own direct competitor to this would be either the Flint pedal, which has kind of the modulated reverb and also spring reverb in it, if you're more of a guitar person. And then also the Blue Sky, which is just a reverb pedal, and it has their plate, shimmer, and hall, and I think their room algorithms in it. And it does allow for saving one favorite. So you don't get 100 presets, you get essentially 2, whatever the settings of the pedal are, and then whatever your preset is going to be. And that may do. I mean, I myself have considered whether or not that would be enough for just pad reverb for my uses. There's about a $200 price difference between them. And so if you have $200 you could spend on something else, that might be something to consider. Other competitors in this area would be the Eventide, I think it's called, I can't remember the name of it, Space Station maybe, or something like that, but Eventide has a similar pedal in about the same price bracket. And then there are a couple of other good pedals considered. One would be the Hall of Fame from TC Electronics, and the other would be the Roland RV. None of them really give you as many options. People generally seem to feel like they are all competitors, though, and so there you go. So let's dive in. So here we're going to play with just the dry version of the sound that we're going to start with. This is actually from Nord's factory samples, and it is a very straight up kind of pad, and so I'll just play it dry for you. So that's just the dry pad. You can hear it's got a good bit of high end on it. The filter is about halfway closed. It's a 2-pole filter. So that's it opened up a little bit. Turn that down just a touch. All right, so you can hear this kind of fairly fat pad there. And so let's go ahead and we'll kind of start with Strymon's own presets, and then I will show you some of my personal favorites. Here we go. So we're going to start with just their room preset. And quick, just for comparison, some piano. So that's, I think that's probably a little bit, like 30% wet. So here we'll go about 50%. And the decay time is about 5 seconds. Somehow I switched over to a hall. We're supposed to be on this one. I must have turned the wrong knob. So this is their room algorithm, and you can actually set between 2 different kinds of rooms. I'm going to kind of dime everything here. So club or studio, it's basically size. Studio is a little smaller, a little drier. Club's a little bigger. Studio. See there, I remember the C sharp that time. All right, moving on. We'll go to hall, and again, I'm going to make sure they're fairly wet reverbs and have a little bit, good amount of tail. And again, we have in the hall size, we have a new control, the mid component of the reverb. This first parameter now is doing the low end. Then if I click value, I can change the size of the room. There's concert, which is what we heard, and then arena. And moving right around, plate. Now the thing about plate reverbs is they're kind of not real. It's a mechanical reverb, a lot like spring reverb, but somewhat better sounding. And for our purposes, the nice thing about plate reverb is it builds the density of the reverb very quickly. It's very predictable, and so it can be pretty useful to build up that tone of the reverb pretty quickly. And the thing about most real plates is you can't get a reverb time that's that long, a couple of seconds, 5, 6, 7 seconds maybe. But here we can dime this guy and we can get reverb tails that are super long. And then you can hear the mod coming in there. The mod on there, that's pretty sweet sounding. I really love that stuff. Alright, so that's the plate. We have both large and small plates, and so we can kind of change the size of that. I should have mentioned earlier that my kids and my wife is going to come home from a movie in a minute, or the dog is going to bark, so if we kind of take a break and come back, that's what's going on there. Alright, moving around. We need to go to the next bank. And we have the spring. We're not going to use this too much. Spring reverb is never something I've liked on keys, but if you did, it's there. I might play something different while we go along here too, you never know. Alright, now we're getting to the ones you guys have asked about. So those first 3 reverbs you can get in Strymon's other pedals. And they're conventional reverbs. They do sound really good in this pedal, I will say. I will also say that I feel like I have software reverbs that sound as good as those for those purposes. But now we're getting into some interesting things that are going to be hard to do in pedal form, or even it's going to take a little bit of work in software to get it to do what we want. So the first thing we're going to do is have the swell reverb. And I will eventually play pads. It's a little bit easier to hear the reverb with the piano going. Oh, my dog is at the door. Hold on a second. Come on, puppy. Now it's going to be loud because she's chasing a fly. That's in here. Alright, so, and we might be able to switch this, so you may have heard it kind of cutting off there. So we're going to change the persist to on. Hurry. Shush. Zip it. Oh, here's my dog, everybody. This is Curry. Hopefully she won't be too loud. You can't see her, but she's very cute. All right. So this is one you guys have been wondering about. This is the Swell Reverb. Oh, dear God. Dog, zip it. All right, so this is one you guys have been wondering about. This is this. You're gonna have to go in your kennel. Okay. I'm gonna kill you. Shh. All right, the next one is the one you guys have been asked about online, and that's the Swell Reverb. And so there's two ways the Swell Reverb can work. It can swell both the dry and the reverb signal, or it can just swell the reverb in behind the dry signal. So I'll show you both of those. Again, I'm playing actual piano here. I've got it set to be about 75% wet, and so that's just kind of the swelling both the dry and the wet, and so we can switch that to mode swell wet, and that sounds more like this. And again, that's with the pretty long reverb tail. If you want to tighten it up, you can shorten that tail. And so you can kind of do it either way. So Swell and Bloom are a little bit different. Swell is really a traditional reverb. This kind of swells in behind. So essentially there's a amplitude envelope on the beginning of the sound. And so we're going to move on to Bloom, and again I'm going to try to make that pretty wet to make sure it has a pretty good tail. So I'll just play a quick chord and you can just hear it kind of come in behind. So there's a little bit of pre-delay there, and it kind of comes in if we lengthen out the delay before the Bloom. It can go even long. Let's make it real long so it's noticeable. If I recall correctly, it's just basically putting delays in front of this that cascade until the sound actually comes in. The other thing that's a little bit different is there is still a little bit of a swell to the front end. It doesn't just kind of drop in. It does build when it finally happens. All right, so let's move up to the next one, which is Cloud. And I gotta tell you, this is the one reverb that might make me keep this pedal. Cloud is kind of more of a 70s, 80s algorithmic reverb. It self-feeds back, so the reverb kind of stays big and dense for a long time. And it, I just really like the way it sounds. Just kind of hear it in there, and then if we crank some mod in there. It's just kind of nice and big. I love it. That's my favorite. Oh, that wasn't Cloud. That was... yeah, that was Cloud. All right. And so next is Chorale. Now, Chorale I have not really gotten to be able to work the way I've heard it in demos online. I mean, it just... I'm going to turn the mix all the way up. I'm going to turn the resonance all the way up, and we're going to make it kind of random vowels. Let's see what we get. Let's take the decay out a little bit longer. let's say like if we were more of an electric guitar, we were kind of just singing out lead lines. So essentially what the reverb is doing is going through a 4-man filter that's changing the vowel based on how you can set it. And I just haven't gotten really convincing 4-mans out of it. I mean, it just doesn't rock me. So I think that one I would let go. All right, the next one that you guys all will be really excited about is Shimmer. And the shimmer on this is pretty nice. So we have a couple of options on here. One, we can set how much shimmer we want. I'm going to turn all the way up so you can hear it. This knob usually does the low end. We have our tone. The other nice thing though is there's actually 2 octave shifts on here. Blah, 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 blah. There it is. So shift 1, we have plus an octave in the preset. Shift 2, 2 octaves. But you can do an octave in a fifth, you can do a second, a third. For our purposes, you know, octaves are safe. Sometimes octave in a fifth might work. It really kind of depends on what you're doing. And so I would say, you know, you can stick to an octave. You can do just 1 octave, 2 octaves. You can do an octave up, an octave down. And so there are a lot of options there. The other thing that you can set, which is pretty useful, is whether or not the pitch shift is happening on the original shift, on the original signal by itself, on the reverb, or on both the original signal and the reverb. Traditionally, it's just done on the reverb, so I'm going to kind of do that. And I'm playing CP80 now, so that's why my piano sound. So you can hear the shimmer there. So it sounds good. I mean, for shimmer, it sounds great. And again, throw some mod in there. Turn the mix up. So, I mean, it sounds really good. I like it. Wait, here, we'll actually go to the next patch, which is Magneto. So Magneto is basically cascaded tape delay, and you can choose whether or not the tape heads are evenly spaced, which will give you a synced delay, or unevenly spaced, which will give you some more movement in the reverb. And it is a much cleaner delay. We can add wow and flutter if we want. My only problem is at higher levels you can easily hear the tape repeats, which is not usually what I'm going for. I just noticed my playing makes the camera bounce, so sorry about that. And so the pre-delay in this case adjusts how much feedback there is. There's not actually a whole lot of decay time you can do on this, but essentially you're going to manage the decay time with the amount of feedback. The decay time actually adjusts the spacing of the simulated tape heads. So with a low decay time, they're close together, you get denser repeats. So if we turn that way down, and then we adjust the overall time with the pre-delay knob, which is really feedback. All right. Nonlinear is also a lot of fun. So here we have actually clustered several different reverbs. So shape is where this is at. And so we have swoosh, reverse, ramp, gated, and then Gaussian, which I'm not even sure what that is. And then bounce. Usually, actually, maybe we need to turn this up a little bit more. There we go. So for me, it's a little too much. I don't really love that one. And then the last stock mode is reflections, which I could see would be useful if actually you were doing more audio design work. You needed to place things, and what that does is let you position something in a room of X size, and so you can actually move it around in the room. Whoops, that's not where I want to do it. So you can put it in the front, the back of the room. And in that case, they're really adjusting how much high frequency content you hear. And then you can also adjust the right and left position. Oh, I guess I have my chords backwards. All right. And so you get an idea about that. Okay, so those are the stock ones, and so let's kind of go to a couple that I got together here. What's the name of this one? All right. And do I have another one below this? I think I do. Yeah, all right. We're actually gonna work backwards. All right, let's switch over to pads. And again, our dry pad is this. That seems really loud now. Here, we'll turn it down. So this is Shimmer Reverb. I just tweaked it to my preferences. And for most of my reverbs, I have a longer decay time, around 10 seconds. One of my pet peeves is that the knobs always jump to the value. They do not pick up when you turn them, which is kind of a pain. Just to give you an idea about how some of the other controls work, if we do you can hear it kind of take out the top end of the reverb. And then the other way, you can hear it take out the low end of the reverb, open up the top a little bit. Also, you can change the repeating of the low end. Or the amount of reverb, rather. And then for Shimmer, the amount knob changes just how much you're going to hear. With the mod way up, you can hear that there's a lot of pitch shifting happening on the reverb tail versus straight up at noon. And right about here is a lot of reverb tail fluctuation, but it's just not that noticeable. So it does kind of make things a little more interesting, but I usually like just a little real modulation. All right, so that was one that I made. This one was for, actually, we'll go back to piano here. So this would be a reverb that was similar to the tutorial I did on Coldplay's Magic Piano. So you can hear that what we've done there is essentially take a pretty long pre-delay. That's super long. And then made sure that the signal was mostly wet. All right. And then really to get a little closer to the album sound, that's kind of a bit darker. More tail. That's too much. Anyway, you get the idea. So that's plate reverb there. All right, guys, family's back from the movie. Got them all settled in. So we were talking about patches, and I'm moving on now to a patch I had for Ian's CP80 pad. That's kind of nice. That's basically built off the cloud reverb. It's 100% wet. I believe there's no pre-delay on it, so as soon as you play, the reverb kicks in and gives you that nice sound. So that was a good one. I like that one. Alright, let's step down a little bit farther. So the next one is just really big. That's my dog licking out somebody's bowl. So again, dry. Oh, maybe I'll play the same thing twice. You never know. Nice, big. Again, we can adjust the pre-delay. Let's have it kick in way late. That'd be kind of fun if we did something like this, and we cranked up some of that, and maybe did that. Then we made it last forever. Maybe we make that a little bit drier, just so it doesn't. So just kind of hanging. So you can hear the reverb kind of join in there, right about here. And it'd be really sweet if we had the sound decaying right around there. Let's do this. At least go a little longer. Swell it in a little bit more. So all I'm doing there is playing with the envelope and the synth and kind of swelling it a little bit more. So that was kind of fun. Let's turn this back to something that's a little bit more like we were using before. All right, now we're getting into a couple of the more interesting reverbs that we had talked about. So the Bloom reverb is just kind of a lot of fun. It just kind of swells on in there a couple of seconds after you start. That's, I think, my dog. It's either my dog or my child. And then you can determine how long it takes to swell in with the pre-delay knob. It's not really pre-delay, but it affects the swell. That's my son. It's trying to sneak into the video. So all I did there was kind of dry up the signal a little bit. Alrighty. And on to the cloud reverb, which is by far my favorite. It just kind of goes on forever. So it's really nice sound. So that is one that might make it a keeper for me. All right, now we get into kind of some of the format shifting ones, the chorale, and I can just don't really know what I would do with it. I mean, maybe if I already had a chorus type sound, like let's try that. Let's switch this down to to find my Mellotron chorus. There it is. I suppose I could do something with that. So anyway, you got a couple options there. All right, the next is a pitch shifting shimmer with a fifth. So we got octave and a fifth. If you just wanted to set it and forget it, if you want to just play kind of your bass pad and toggle hold and let that puppy roll, this would be a great thing to do. And then noodle over that, I'm an acoustic guitar player and I'm gonna play stuff. I see that making itself onto the internet. And so there, it's kind of one of the things you can do with it that is harder to do with other software. Not a lot of software that I know that will let you add the fifth for the shimmer. I don't even think Valhalla lets you do a fifth. I haven't been in that deep. Then we can just add different things. Oh wait, I moved on to the next reverb. So we can add more to make it more pronounced, or we can make it less until where really it's off. So I mean, that is one nice control that you can kind of add the amount of the regeneration that you like, which is nice. All right, moving on. Basically, tape delay as reverb. If you read my reverb article, you know that all reverb really is a whole lot of delays. And so if you are running out of reverbs, one thing you can do is to throw some delay on. And the thing about delay as reverb is it's pretty clean. I mean, it doesn't get real messy and sloppy. You can kind of maintain the same tone and texture of the dry input signal and just give it a little more space. Almost always I have it set to unequal. Where is that one at? It's going to be up here. So I have the head spacing set to 6, so 6 tape heads, and I have the spacing to uneven, so it kind of gives a lot of options. And then with this one, as I mentioned before, the decay time is really the head spacing, and the pre-delay is the feedback into the tape delay. So that's kind of at max right there, and if I crank this all the way up, still going. But the thing is, the more you crank up the decay time, the more noticeable the repeats are. So it's one thing you got to keep in mind. And also the thing about this is it'll let you do diffusion. So no diffusion is essentially strict delay. Diffusion turns it really more into a reverb. You're going to start to add some mush to your delay repeats. And it kind of makes it more reverby, which is nice. I kind of like that. I might be able to do something with that. And I think that is it. Yep. For my personal presets. And so let me just kind of spin us back around to Hall, and again just kind of walk through some of the controls and how they sound. So that's like 40% wet. So again, pre-delay was going to adjust kind of how long our, let's see if I can see what that's going to be. No, I can't get it to show me what the actual pre-delay will be, but we can set how long till our reverb kicks in. So that was a long one. Again, we got our dry wet tone, just to again hear it. Make it all the way wet. So especially with a really short pre-delay, that's a way to kind of help your, maybe add a little body to your pad. Especially when you crank that up a little bit without kind of running all over the top end of it. All right, let me turn that back up a little bit. Turn that there. And that's good. And we'll dime that one. All right, so again, low end. Kind of controls the amount of low end decay, plus a lot more low end, minus less low end. I haven't found it to be a very remarkable control. I mean, haven't noticed a lot of big changes with the kind of reverb we're getting out of it. And again, in hall reverb, you can also do the same for the mids. I don't usually mess with that. Then the last thing most people want to know about, again, is the mod. So let's listen to that again just for a minute. So right here, it's going to adjust the reverb tails to different lengths. So essentially your decay time is being modulated. And so the swelling, you know, the reverb is building at not exactly the same times. And I don't know. I haven't noticed a lot of effect there. And then towards the right half of the dial, it's real modulation. So it's 100% wet. Then as I turn down, you can hear it kind of settle. As I turn it up, you can hear it start to wobble. So now we're about 50-50. So what's my kind of final take on this? I like it. I think I might keep it just for the Bloom and Cloud particular algorithms. They're pretty great. Could I go with a Big Sky, or I'm sorry, a Blue Sky and feel pretty good? Yeah, I think so. I've heard also good things from the Roland unit and the Hall of Fame pedal. So I'm not sure if the Big Sky lives up to the hype quite to the extent that I have seen and heard online. I will say it is a very solid reverb. I mean, I'd be quite happy using it as an effect both for keys or on vocals. Some of the effects that it has are good. I mean, really unusual and really neat. I would say the plate itself is really solid, and a plate reverb is really handy to have. It is a super great thing to be able to go back to. So to have a really solid plate reverb is wonderful. I actually haven't found a great software plate reverb that I love so far, so that's a good thing. And so, I mean, all in all, it's pretty handy. And then the build quality is great. It's really solid pedal. It feels good. Switches are nice and chunky. The knobs feel very solid, and so in that respect, I think it's pretty nice. The last thing that I haven't mentioned is that, again, the whole thing is MIDI controllable. All of it, all the settings inside of it can be mapped to MIDI controllers. Now, it is a pedal, and so you can't kind of adjust the mapping, but they have pretty good MIDI documentation on which controllers control what, and so it's not too hard to map things if you want to. I haven't really done much of that yet, but you could easily do it so that you could control it from your Surface if you wanted to. And that would be handy, especially if you have limited desktop real estate. And I myself played pretty much with my Nord Stage Compact on a keyboard, and so there's not really anywhere else to put it. I have to have it on the ground and trigger it from there. So anyway, that's it. Any other questions, just email me. I can certainly post a follow-up if we need to. And thanks for joining me. This is Casey Glass for Worship Synths. Bye-bye.